We're talking about failure today, and we all love those fail videos on YouTube. How many times have you started watching those, and then like 3 hours later, you're still watching them because they're so fun, right? And it's totally funny when someone fails, except when it happens to you. I was in high school, and I grew up in California, and so I wore shorts to school all the time. And I'm standing on a bench talking with my friends, and I don't know why I was standing on a bench other than I don't know what I was doing, but I was standing on a bench and just hanging out with my friends, and Nate Watson, a guy who was 1 year underneath us, he was Andy Watson's brother, he comes up behind me, I didn't know this, and he pantses me. So if you don't know what pantsing is, that means he came up right behind me and pulled my shorts down, right? And I thought, ha, joke's on him, because I was wearing boxers. So I'm like, yeah, who cares? So I'm shorts underneath my shorts, right? No big deal, ha! And then I realized he pulled down my underwear too. So that was very, very embarrassing. So failures like that, whether they're embarrassing or painful, are easy to look back on and laugh. Sometimes when we fail in other ways, it's not so easy. It can be really, really hard things for us to deal with. Remember last year, hopefully you remember, it was last year around this time, NBA Finals, and it was the Golden State Warriors versus our Cavs. We still had LeBron. It was May 31st, my anniversary, and the Warriors and the Cavaliers were tied at 107 apiece. There were 4.7 seconds on the board. Hill was up to shoot a free throw. If he makes the free throw, then we win game one. It's going to be awesome because there will not be enough time for Golden State to make a bucket after that, right? And if you remember what happened last year, if you don't remember, this will remind you.
Percent free throw shooter during his 10-year career. Steve Kerr telling his guys he wants a timeout, make a miss. Golden State has one timeout left. Plenty of time with 4.7 remaining. Hill misses. Rebound goes to the Cavs. J.R. Smith brings it back out. Throws it to Hill. Hill shot blocked. And we'll go to overtime. You get the feeling J.R. Smith jumping on the lead. You don't know the score.
I think exactly. That's a bad mistake by J.R. Smith.
And LeBron James was trying to get a timeout.
And LeBron James is wide open at the top when he gets the rebound.
And they have a timeout left. Let's watch it again. Great job from Smith to get the rebound, but dribbled it away. And Hill could not get off a quality shot. Watch James. Now wanted a timeout, but too late to get it. And 5 minutes go up on the clock. Overtime here in game one.
Oh, that was rough. Can you imagine having one of your biggest failure moments happening on national TV? And then knowing all these people have seen it, even the next day, people are tweeting about it, memeing it, all kinds of things. Imagine having to look at LeBron James and having him look at you like that. You must have felt terrible. Felt so bad for Smith. Oh my word, man. Good night, poor guy. Sometimes failures can be huge, and they can be really, really hard for us to deal with. I think for a lot of times we feel this instant regret, right? We end up failing, we end up regretting it later, and we're like, man, I wish I would have done that. And the hard part about it is so much shame gets flooded our way. We make a mistake, and we get filled with shame, and it feels like we feel like we're unlovable, right? That guilt makes us feel like not only can no one love us anymore, but even God can't love us. Sometimes when we make mistakes, it just feels so hard and heavy. And that's not the idea that we have for you guys today, and not what we want you to leave with today. In fact, our story today we're going to look at is exactly the opposite of that. Well, what do you do when you do feel that way, when you feel like you have blown it in ways that even God can't love you anymore? We're going to look at the life of a disciple that felt that same way. So last week we celebrated Easter, right? Jesus coming back from the dead. He had died crucified, died, was buried, and came back to life. Today we're going to share a story that we don't often hear about that happened after Jesus was raised to life again. And it takes place on the lake. And the disciples, some of them, Peter and a few others, are in a lake on a boat, and they're fishing, and they're getting skunked. They're not getting anything. And then they see some guy on the shore, and this guy's like, "Hey, boys!" Or however he said it. He's like, "Why don't you guys throw your nets on the other side?" And they're like, "Who's that guy? What does he know?" "Well, we'll try it anyway." So they put their nets on the other side, and there were so many fish that like the boat was like going under. They're like, "Oh my gosh!" They're like, their nets are tearing. They're bringing so many fish. And then all of a sudden, Peter looks out and realizes that guy was Jesus. So check out our story here this morning. Jesus says, "Now come and have some breakfast." Because, you know, after you've died and God brings you back to life, clearly you're hungry, I guess, right? So Jesus says, none of the disciples dared to ask him, "Who are you?" Because they knew it was the Lord. Then Jesus served them the bread and the fish. This was the third time Jesus had appeared to his disciples since he had been raised from the dead. And after breakfast, Jesus asked Simon Peter. Now, Simon Peter is Peter, the disciple. And Jesus, his name was really Simon, but Jesus called him Peter because Peter means rock. And Jesus said that on you, Peter, I'm going to build my church, the rock. And Peter was our first pope and everything. He was a huge influential leader. So in this way, Jesus calls him Simon Peter. So he's Simon Peter. "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" And maybe that question doesn't seem like a big deal to you until you realize what had happened just days earlier. You see, it was Thursday night, early Friday morning. Jesus had already been arrested. He'd already been beaten, taken by the guards, and the disciples were freaked out because they were not expecting Jesus to be arrested. They thought he was going to be the king, and here he was totally arrested, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, what's happening? This guy's supposed to be the ruler of all. What's going on?" And they're afraid that they're going to get in trouble now too. They had all split. Well, someone recognizes Peter, and they're like, hey, you were with that guy too, right? And Peter's like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And some lady's like, Yeah, your accent gives it away. You're one of those northerner guys. You were with that guy." He's like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And someone goes, "Yeah, surely I've seen you with him." And finally Peter cusses. He's like, "Blah, I don't know this guy." And right at that moment, this rooster crows and he realizes, oh my gosh. And in the book of John, it says that in that moment, Peter's eyes connected with Jesus and he realized, oh my gosh, I just betrayed my best friend. And he was like, what do I do? And so the last time that he had seen Jesus was on a cross. So he had betrayed Jesus 3 times and then watched his master die. And now he's sitting over at breakfast on Sunday morning and Jesus says to him, "Simon, do you love me?" And you can imagine, how would you feel if you had betrayed Jesus? What would you be thinking? How would you respond? Well, this is what Peter says. "Yes, Lord," Peter replied, "you know I love you." "Then feed my lambs," Jesus told him. Jesus repeated the question, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" "Yes, Lord," Peter said, "you know I love you." "Then take care of my sheep," Jesus said. A third time he asked him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" And Peter was hurt that Jesus asked the question for a third time. And he said, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." And Jesus said, "Then feed my sheep." Well, Jesus wasn't saying, "Hey, Peter, I want you to put down the fishing rod and become a shepherd." He was saying for him, I need you to lead my followers, to be the leader that I need you to be. Peter denied him 3 times, and 3 times Jesus reinstates him, basically saying, it's okay. And that's a huge thing for you guys to remember because you guys are going to blow it. If you have not already made some huge mistakes in your life, you're going to. And you're going to feel like, man, how could God love me when I have done something so bad? It's something that if my friends knew about it, they wouldn't want to be my friends anymore. They would just be so embarrassed. You're going to feel that way. And you're going to want to step away from God. And yet in that moment, Jesus says, don't. Stay close to me. Stay with me. You see, Peter's failure didn't disqualify him from God's love. God still loved him despite his failure, despite what he did. And your failures don't take away Jesus' love either. Scripture is very clear that there is nothing that can separate you from God's love. Height, nor depth, nor things in the past, nor things to come. No matter what, God loves you. And he's wild about you. And because of Jesus, there's always an opportunity for forgiveness and grace. And the big idea that we want you to leave here this morning is that because your failures, no matter what, your failures don't take away Jesus' love. No matter what you've done, no matter how you feel, your failure is never final. I don't know if you can ever do something as horrible as what Peter did, with denying Jesus, denying that you even knew Jesus. You're never going to deal with that, right? So you don't have to worry about your things being as bad as his. Nothing is going to separate you from God's love. What's up, Med 4-5? That's perfect timing. Perfect timing. Come on in. Come forward. We're so glad you guys are here. Yeah, come on. Woo! We're glad to worship with you guys this morning. Very fun. So the big idea here is instead of wanting to go away from God when you make a mistake, we want to encourage you to move towards Jesus. And I don't know what that looks like. Maybe you make a mistake and you're moving towards God is just immediately going and praying and saying, God, I blew it. Please forgive me. This is not who I am. This is not what I want to do, but I just feel so trapped in this thing. Please forgive me. Maybe moving towards God after you fail is just coming back to church and just going, you know what, I just need to be back here. It's going to be okay. Even though I feel like, I might burst into flames the second I walk into church, that I need to be back here. And I trust me, you won't burst into flames in hell. I don't know what it looks like for you to take a step towards Jesus, but we're going to talk about that in your small groups this morning. So again, the big idea is that there's no failure that can ever take away God's love for you. And so I want you to be thinking about as we enter into a time of worship is this: what's one way a failure in my life has kept me from God? What's one way a failure in my life has kept me from God? The first song that our team is going to sing this morning is called Amazing Grace. And grace is this idea that you get what you don't deserve. Like when you work for something, you get your allowance, you deserve that, right? When I work at a job, I get paid for my job, I get what I deserve. Well, grace is getting what you don't deserve. And that's the grace that we have from God, that we receive God's forgiveness. And so we're so excited to be able to celebrate the hope that comes from Easter, but also the celebration that no matter what failure we have made, it is not beyond God's grace. So let me pray for us as we enter into this time of worship. God, thank you for your incredible love for us. Thank you for your grace. We love you. And we hope that you will enjoy this music as we celebrate you and what you've done in response to what you've done. We pray this in your name. Amen. Will you stand with us? Let's worship and sing.
Who breaks the power?